Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
Well, guys, please do make sure you're subscribed to both channels, Evolutionary Energy Arts, and also over on EEARTS, where recently we went over 18,000 subscribers. And of course, everything that we see using this technology is all just a matter of what they want to have appear.
Indeed.
But we are all co-manifestors in this world. And we do want to thank our Patreons because you guys have been wonderful in supporting us through these times of demonization.
Yes, and thank you so much, Holistic Approach. We appreciate your support.
And also on Ko-Fi, where you could do a one-time donation or you could just click the monthly button and it goes in order of coffees. And sipping on coffee still this morning.
Yes, indeed.
And speaking of that, Medicinal Foods has a coffee break if you want to get off coffee, which I don't.
No, I still like my coffee too.
I am a teetotaler, but also a coffee totaler too.
Yeah. We do lots of total things.
We do. And Medicinal Foods has a lot of good stuff to boost your immune system. And we cannot overstate. It's impossible to overstate how important it is right now to be at the top of your game as far as your physical health, because we're all under attack in this world as far as our physical health goes.
We are, and there's many layers to it. So, yeah.
Many layers to it, and there are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. And I don't know why this came to me right before we made this or started to make this video, but it was just an impulse, and it's true. There are way more things than the vast majority of people understand underway and afoot. There is invisible help, and we are literally also being attacked by what we can't see.
Well, obviously Hamlet here has a few words he wants to impart to us, I guess.
Yes, and Shakespeare is fascinating in and of himself. Yes. There are ties to Shakespeare and the KJV, which we won't go into right now, but we will speak about Mars. So I think I misspoke the other day when I was saying that Mars was going retrograde. At that point in time, it's not going retrograde until the 30th, but again, we do feel the effects of these things ahead of time. And for some people, they might say astrology, it's the programming of the matrix that we are in.
Yes, and we need to really, the more we can understand that programming, the more we can understand where we fit in this huge puzzle that we were all born in.
So as the first line says, oh man, it's about to get messy. Yeah, can't you see it? Can't you feel it? Can't you? We could hear it. We're hearing it from everybody out there. Everybody's feeling it. Do you feel the tension out there? There's so much tension. And if you're one of the ones that's not feeling the tension, beautiful and wonderful. And perhaps it's because you've got yourself grounded and rooted. And yes, we could ground and root even when it's too cold to bury our feet in the snow. You could still do it. Just, put your feet on whatever it is, hardwood floor, ceramic tile, even the linoleum, you could still ground and root at any time. It's a matter of visualization and opening up and telling your energy body what to do and to sink into the energies of the mother, of the earth herself, and come in harmony with that. The other thing that happens when we are in harmony with the earth, just like the birds in the sky or the animals that know when there's going to be, say, for instance, an earthquake or a big storm or something's going to happen and the animals leave the area before it does happen, it's because they're in tune with nature. They know something energetically is off.
Right, and they haven't been drinking the fluoridated water.
No, and they probably haven't been drinking a lot of other things too. Right. Nanu.
Indeed.
Or having the other things put into themselves in some other way, shape, or form. But Mars is going to be going retrograde And so what's the negative or perceived negative aspects of Mars? The first thing that comes to my mind anyway is conflict. And, that warlike tendency. Again, we do need some Mars in our life. Otherwise, we might be trampled underfoot. Walk straight all over. We certainly can see in this time the value of speaking up. If we didn't have people speaking up at this point in time, it would be a totally different world and even in worse shape than what we see.
Right. See, we're all connected to these planets. Our chakras are connected to these planets, and we can sit down and deliberately connect to these planets and ask for their more positive attributes, which would give us courage. It would give us that knowledge and understanding of all the things that we might need to get through upcoming difficult times. Mars is a soldier. Mars is a protector. And they really portray Mars a lot of times as a warmonger. And I don't think Mars really wants to be portrayed like that. I think Mars prefers to be that protector of all. So let's focus that energy and let's bring that energy into us, that protective energy.
So while there are certain dark forces, and often they're forces we cannot see, but as our senses open up, we can feel them clearer and clearer. And we could see through the puppets that they are using to, bring about their agenda. Let us take this energy and let us turn it into an energy of exposure to basically, pull away that curtain and expose what's really going on behind the scenes. So over a dozen deaths confirmed after a warplane crashed. At least 13 people have died after an Su-34 hit an apartment block. As you can see, this is in Russia, and you can see it here in the background, right over here as it goes into the apartment building, which is obviously a horrible, scary thing. And let's send our prayers to all those families out there, as you can see it on fire there. Just another brick in the wall of the beginning stages of, as we could see, this is from Disclosed TV. It's the beginning stages still of something that they're trying to expand on. And this says Putin wants a declaration of war against the entire Western democratic world. So says Bruno Kahl, head of German intelligence service, BND. And there is a shifting of the energies. The thing that's really important is we need to recognize these energies that shift, the powers that be, that are always slightly changing, at least on the exterior. The manipulation that's going on is, again, much bigger than most people realize. Most people don't understand the scope of this, or they just don't want to acknowledge the scope because it puts out a world view that, frankly, for Homo sapiens is terrifying. The thought that we don't really have total control of our own our own planet. But then again, we are part of something much bigger. How could we ever have total control? We have to live in a symbiotic way, in a harmony with all that's around us, where we could see that the leadership of this planet is not about harmony. Always, always, always about division. And here you see South Africa confirms Saudi Arabia is going to join BRICS, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. So BRICSA. Maybe it's going to be BRICSA, or maybe it's going to be a BRICS.
Yeah, I like a BRICS.
I think, though, they're going to keep adding a lot of alphabet letters to this word. Maybe it'll end up becoming out like abracadabra.
That sounds fun, actually.
Yeah, and again, this really, really is screaming to me, and we got to check in. Cindy has been able to contact with Nostradamus, and one of his quatrains, which speaks about the Arabian prince inclined towards Persia, and it talks about a 1 million man invasion that goes through the land bridge that is Turkey over by what was Byzantium in his day, Constantinople, coming into Europe, we could see like these a lot of these prophecies are just a little bit away, and we can change this timeline. We have changed timelines. I totally believe we've already shifted timelines many, many, many times. They're always changing. Nothing is set in stone. Again, it's the controllers that want you to believe you can't change our plans because we've told you those plans come from the one and only God. But the one and only God is all about setting a world into being and letting it go, seeing what's going to happen and develop as each individual entity interacts with others and is free to explore the creation. That's why the creation's there. It's there to be a canvas upon which everyone paints. It's not the creator of everything already knowing what the picture is going to look like. There's no point in the picture then. That's just so basic. There's no point in putting a picture out when you already know what the picture is going to look like with an illusion of free will. There is free will, but we're being manipulated.
I know. At that point, you just have a stamp.
Yeah. Why not just smack it with the stamp and say we're done?
There it is.
Why do so many people never think to question why? Why? And that's a great question that we should be asking our politicians, our religious leaders, whatever word they use. Why? Why really? Why? Hello? Doesn't make sense. No. Well, again, just don't accept. As Buddha said, don't accept anything because I told you. No. You got to judge it for yourself. Don't accept it because your parents or any person of any authority. Don't accept what me and Cindy say. You got to judge it for yourselves. And so this is just one more brick in the wall. And it is a big brick, though, because, again, we know the richness of Saudi Arabia. For many years, too, Saudi Arabia has been the number one arms buyer from the U.S. This is a huge shift, but it's all part of a shift that, basically the guides have showed me since 1984. Secede from Oregon, we were just talking to an Oregonian. Yes. I think that's what you say, right?
I think so.
Oregonian?
Yeah, let's do it.
Greater Idaho is on the ballot in 2 conservative counties. And Idaho is a beautiful state. Cindy can vouch for it. There is family in Idaho, and if it was a little more affordable, we might be there with family.
That's true. It's a gorgeous place, and I have family there, and they do very well for themselves. They take advantage of all the things that can be done for self-sustainability. I mean, every single thing that can be done, they definitely do, and I'm sure proud of them.
And some people will say, yeah, they've been talking about this for years. And yes, we have, but the time for action is coming. The beginning of this election cycle is really the beginning of the end for so many things that have been, but are going to change. They're going to morph. So Greater Idaho is on the ballot in 2 conservative counties. As we know, people are not in agreement over the way that the country should be directed. And in fact, this is much bigger than just even Idaho and Oregon. As you look a voting map from 2020, the blue is obviously, leaning left. The red is leaning right. So the vast majority land-wise is right-leaning. Of course, the big cities, this is what we see in many states. But, the big question I have is how long will it be until the left coast is no longer part of the USA? Because I do think that's coming too, and that's, again, something that's been strongly just running through the intuitive side of things. When we see this, Russia invites U.S. states to secede and join Russia. A senior Russian lawmaker has seemingly invited American states to leave the Union and instead join the Russian Federation, amid polling showing support amongst Americans for their states to break away. Alexander Tamalchev, a senior member of Russia's parliament, the Duma, told Russian news website well, a Russian news website, that any U.S. state wanting to secede from the U.S. would be welcome to apply to join his country. He cited polls showing Americans wanting their states to break away from the U.S. before calling for any such U.S. state wanting to join Russia to hold elections on the matter. It's important that voting takes place not on social networks, but officially and legitimately, Mr. Tomalchev said in apparent reference to online polling in the U.S. and in elections in regions of Ukraine annexed by Russia this month. He stated that Moscow would consider any U.S. state wanting to join the Russian Federation should any election be held, and the U.S. was beginning to decay. He also added another ally of Ukraine, the European Union, was bursting at its seams. Both the U.S. and the European Union, as well as NATO members such as Canada and UK, have provided billions in military aid to Ukraine, as well as economic assistance in military equipment. So, this is interesting, is it not, to see this? And in some ways, I feel this is being put out there as a precursor. And, I put two different sources just for linking it. I want to remind everybody, we talked all about this multiple times, did a couple videos on this. And this is just going back to 3/16 of this year. Alaska governor reacting to hearing that Russia wants Alaska back. Not only Alaska, but also Hawaii. Did you know that at one point in time, Russia also controlled part of California and also down into Washington and Oregon?
Wow, no, I did not know that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we could go back to 2005 with Chinese General Hao Shan saying that, and this is the same one that said that if there was a WW3, the first blows would be BIO. Logical. That would be the first blows of World War III. So don't you think that's already happened? I think you guys know. 99% of you guys know, and the other ones, the other maybe 0.4% of 1% are people that just come and go. But you guys understand what's going on in the bigger scheme of things. That blow has already happened. So he also said that the original natives that were pushed out, he was basically making reference to the indigenous people in the Americas when, say, the Puritans came and the conquistadors came, the Europeans came, were of Chinese origin, and that makes North and South America part of Chinese territory. This is in that 2005 speech that said that at some point in time, it's inevitable that China and U.S. will square off for dominion over the world as far as being the leader, the leading power broker. And that's well underway at this period in time. And I do think that it will be more than apparently clear to everybody in less than 3 years' time, I would say for sure, probably less than even 2 years' time, that we're there. The war can expand at any point in time right now. It's just chaos, and they are basically like, shooting in the dark to see what's going to stick at this point.
Yeah, I think that's really what's going on, and it is really kind of a very fragile timeline we're on.
Yeah. So again, Russia wants Alaska back, China wants all of North and South America back. And so I'll have all the links for you guys. And then also, again, we did do videos on this, and you could search. I think I put most of those up on Evolutionary. I'll try to dig them up so you could take a look at them. U.S. pushes to expand Coast Guard patrols in Indo-Pacific to hem in China. Everything that could be done to irritate and inflame the situation is being done. But we could go back to that 1871 reference, and it's been a while since I pulled them up, so I'll pull it up for you guys.
Mm-hmm. And this is where everything gets fun, because the information just starts coming in, and that's what makes every video so different. It could just take on a different type of energy all of a sudden, but it's always fun and it's always interesting. It's what we do. We sit here in the mornings and we just kind of go through the headlines together, and Oh, of course. And they don't want us to see it. Oh, there we go. There we go.
Yeah.
And we start pulling stuff up.
So, there's many different versions of this, and you could see the headlines, 3 WWs planned by that group that starts with an I, ends with an I, in 1871. And people have said that this is nothing but a farce. But yet, there is a printed reference to this pre-World War I. I think it was right around 1900, around 1900 or so. There was another reference to this. It's fascinating, really, when you think about it. But right now, I'm reading like 4 books simultaneously, all about these secret societies, and some ways that I haven't read about them in 20 years. Because, again, this all goes back so far. These plans are so long-term. And what I was also getting was that in many ways, again, these secret societies are all working towards one goal, but often they're actually pitted against each other because it serves a bigger purpose. It really does serve a bigger purpose. So, and again, there is always distortion in there. And so, part of this purpose for this third one is to, according to the prophecies, quote unquote, and, again, are they really prophecies? To bring about the end of Christianity and Islam. Whereas, like, we go back to World War II, one of the main purposes was to bring about the restoration of Israel. So, again, only to destroy it later. They really do guide and create political and ideological systems only to later destroy them. Why in the world would you do that? Because the purpose is really chaos in the first place. A new order out of chaos. That's the whole purpose. And there are dark entities that you can't see, going back to that first reference. You can't see them doesn't mean that they're not there. Just look at the visible spectrum. It's so small compared to what is there, that we know is there. We just can't see it. Can you see? And some of you might be able to see the very energy in the air. I've been able to see the life force with my visible eyes since I was 22, I believe. Yeah, 22. So, that's been 35 years. But I still can't see necessarily radio waves and things like that. But we know that they're there. We can't necessarily see microwaves, but we know that they're there. Well, there are beings that feast on the energy of battle. They feast. It's an all-you-can-eat buffet. War is an all-you-can-eat buffet for certain entities. And these entities are working with the dark controllers. And often the dark controllers need to just simply acquiesce and feed the hounds of hell, so to speak, to keep them, under control and doing their bidding.
Well, you go with the law of as above, so below. So as they are causing their chaos and their war, they're getting this influx of energy that we perceive to be money. Very, very important. It allows someone to have a lot of control. So that influx of energy then translates to food for these darker entities. So everybody gets fed. Everybody gets some type of feeding. Everybody gets some type of energy. And that's how things work in this world that we live in.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Belarus to hold live fire drills with Russia amid troop surge. Now, they say this exercise is only going to have 9,000 Russian troops there. However, there's been reports for weeks of tons of Russian troops and equipment coming into Belarus. And Belarus would probably be the first other country to officially join Russia in fighting alongside it. And, likely expansion will be into Poland and Lithuania. But, again, it could expand into Germany, or who knows? There could be something else that happens first. Maybe we'll have that Taiwan invasion or something totally unexpected. Of course, you have the wild cards out there like North Korea and Syria. There's so many places they have fires kindling. It's just a matter of which one goes up in flames first. UK wants China to stop hiring its ex-military pilots. Beijing is allegedly eager to teach its Air Force how to better defeat Western. If you can't figure out that the West and NATO has been totally sold out. So while there is this compartmentalization going on, and sure, there are Chinese generals and there are U.S. generals and UK generals that don't understand how things really work, that are still kind of asleep at the wheel and not really understanding that they're being manipulated. There are people in the militaries of all these countries that totally buy on to the patriotic point of view for their own particular country and think they are serving their country, when in reality, they're serving the will of the controllers. This has always been about control through chaos. And again, there's thousands of acres of Texas on the border with Mexico that's owned by China. There's Chinese police stations in New York. Chinese police stations in New York. Chinese police stations in Australia. Oh no, they're just rounding up dissidents and gonna send them back to China. Gonna kind of, come home. You gotta come home now. No, not at all. This is all a part of basically enforcing Chinese CCP rule in all these places shortly, probably within a handful of years. And China halts key energy supplies to EU. Fears over a winter deficit have forced Beijing to cease LNG exports. So China told its state-owned gas importers and everything, and this is part of their plan, everything will be owned by the state. Everything. You're not going to own anything. Again, they've told us this. Hey, you don't want to own anything. Just lease it. Just get a new one. When your underwear has holes in it, don't worry, we'll lease you new underwear.
Mm-hmm. That's so kind.
Yeah, I mean, they're just thinking out for us, right?
Yeah.
But the state's going to own everything. You're going to own nothing. That's slavery. And there are going to be people that say, wait a minute, I get to sit home all day and play video games, and you're going to pay me $1,200, $1,500, whatever it is that they give you a month as your universal basic income. And there are going to be people that say, this is great. Oh my God, I love this. Sign me up. What do you mean? I got to get a what? Where? Is it going to hurt? Whatever. I just get to be lazy and play video games all day. There's going to be a lot of people that jump right on that. Right on that. And it's part of the dumbing down of society that's been ongoing for generations. EU's foreign affairs chief, don't worry about money for Ukraine. Don't worry. Yeah, sure. Here, take another 500 million, take a couple more billion. Again, it's all about, it serves purposes. Obviously, there's the loosh. Obviously, in the chaos of war, nobody could see really what's going on. And there could be things that would expose some of our hidden history that get wiped out. That's what's happened in Iraq, in Syria, and in Afghanistan, and many other spots. They've wiped out the history. They've been able to go in and destroy relics and things that, people would be able to tie together. It gives them a cover, a huge cover. And of course, there's a lot of monetary covering up with certain politicians going on as well. Meanwhile, Brits told to prepare for blackouts on really cold evenings. The head of the National Grid has warned that a worst-case scenario might see power cuts in January and February. The deepest, darkest evenings in January and February could be marked by 3-hour blackouts. Bundle up, guys. The U.S. is saying basically the same sort of thing again. The U.S. warned of winter blackouts. Gas supplies to several states in the Northeast could shrink if weather changes for the worse. Meanwhile, we're getting weather that we usually don't have for another month, because we are going to have, freezing temperatures, which usually don't come until the middle of November here tonight. So, anything they can do to disrupt the food supply is being done. UK food banks forced to ration amidst unprecedented influx of people in need. It's the perfect storm. And we've been saying this for the entire time the channel's been here, and I've been saying this in general for like 30 plus years. And that's why I had the nickname Old Doom and Gloom with some of my friends. But now they're like, you were right.
Yeah.
You were always right. But again, it's nothing to be proud of. We just need to prepare as best as we can. As we see the forecast for U.S. recession within the year hits 100%. Well, that's pretty likelihood. And I wouldn't call it a recession. This is the big restructuring that we're into now. This is the big restructuring.
And a lot of things that we need to be prepared for. And it's not that we want to be right. We don't want to be right about things like this at all. But if you see something coming down the tracks and you see these things becoming really, really unstable, it's only natural to kind of shout out to people to brace yourselves, hold on, there's something's going to occur. And I think if you were to not say something, well, to me, that's the bad part, is to see all these horrible things happening and you don't say anything to anyone, so no one can prepare. So that's, why we hold the position we do. It's so much better to state it.
Home asking prices are tumbling at a record pace. As like yesterday, I get notifications because we're always looking. And we also know that the guides have told us, and everybody has a unique situation. But again, they've told us certain areas to avoid, and that could be for us. It could be just for us. I don't really know. However, I would be cautious again about areas direct waterfront, whether you're on the ocean, on the Gulf, or even in by a river or a lake that could. How many times have we seen houses and cars swept away? Whether it's inland or directly, on the oceans. A ton. We've seen floods that defy any sort of logic. And there's a reason, again. And yeah, there are natural cycles, but what's going on is not all natural. And anybody that tells you it's all natural, then I'm going to be suspicious of them.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Because we know the technology's out there. It's all out there. So, yeah, I was noticing yesterday when things were coming in from some of the different real estate places that I subscribe to, the listings that are coming out it's night and day from just a couple months ago. I mean, there's beautiful properties coming on the market right now at much better looking prices. Anybody that's been, hemming or hawing and thinking about when do we sell, well, just know, because it does work on both sides, you're probably not going to ever get what you got before. If what you could have gotten a month ago, you won't get now, more than likely. But at the same time, when you go to buy something else, it should be cheaper. But I do think also there is this knowing of people to get away from the cities. And so I do think, again, those more remote locations, the people in the inner cities are moving to the suburbs are moving more to the country. That type of thing is going to keep going on. All the while, the powers that be want to gather you in mega cities eventually. Keep that in mind. And also we have the record poultry deaths from bird flu. Virus type complicates the fight. And, me personally, I have no trust in any of the, science. That's just me. I don't trust any of the science when I understand that the money behind the science has its own logic it wants to get across.
Mm-hmm. It does. I mean, their own agenda every single time. So that's why we always say, get in touch with your truth so you can read it for yourself.
So Liz Truss, who was not elected by the people of the UK, who was selected and again is a member of the WEF, one of their young leaders, her number one opponent was also one of the young leaders of the WEF. So, it's not going so easy for her. And in fact, the Tories might be facing electoral wipeout so bad that the SNP would become their official opposition. And, again, what we can hope for is the fact that people are going to not accept what is being given to them. They tell us right now, JB, number 46, they tell us that his approval is 46%. I don't know. Oh, here's Dr. Jill, and she's going to lead a sing-along. I can't hear her at all. But something else sounds really familiar. I feel bad for these guys. Mm-hmm. I mean, they are so obviously uncomfortable. No matter what they tell you, we know the truth. And over here, by the way, JB was aware, potentially involved in Sons. Everything is going to be exposed. But the thing that we want to get across is don't think that this is not part of the plan.
All right. Everything that we see, everything that we're allowed to see, there's a reason behind it.
Yeah. And so like we were talking about the power structure and what the power structure is on the planet. This one over here, where does the top of, where does the top of the pyramid lead? Again, it's not Homo sapiens. Every Homo sapien that is part of this power structure is nothing but a puppet that might be tossed on a funeral pyre at some point in time. As you throw out your worn garments. That's how, again, the true power structure views every single Homo sapien, and even those that are not exactly Homo sapiens.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking about Homo sapiens, this from Sci News, Neanderthals and Homo sapiens coexisted in France and Spain for at least 1,400 years. This is what they're telling us again. And scientists, again, predict the appearance of Homo sapiens and the Proto-Aurignacian culture in France and northern Spain at 42,269 to 42,653 years ago, and the extinction of the Chatelperronian culture and regional Neanderthals at 39,894 to 39,798, and they give these other dates. So basically an overlapping of 1,400 to maybe 3,000 years between the human groups. Now we know a lot of people do have DNA from Neanderthals and also from the group that we know as Denisovans in them. And what we have gotten, again, was that we're not given at all the right perception of these beings.
No, they make them out to be like thugs, and they just used, rocks and sticks and stuff. It's just ridiculous how they make them out. These beings were very much in touch with the earth. They were very trusting. They were very benevolent. And this is right where the power structure comes in and starts to break that down and pick things apart and find what they call weak spots. And really, it was just a very benevolent type of energy that we're dealing with. But they have to take that and take advantage of it. It's really horrible.
Yeah, and again, I want to change the perception too, because when we are looking at these beings, and we might think of these beings as being so different than us, again, we are that animates the body. The body is just our vehicle. So what happened here is actually, it's basically like you're trading in one car and you're downgrading. And this is exactly what the controllers do through controlling the genetics and the DNA. There is the same thing going on right now. What's to come about after the end of everything that we see going on? A version that's more controllable, a version that has less abilities, a version that's less in tune with nature and its surroundings.
That's right. Something that's more in tuned. And that's where we could be too. That's where we need to work on getting ourselves, is back in touch with those surroundings, and we can create it ourselves. We don't have to just lay down and accept that which has been given. No, we have more power than we think we do. So
Yes.
with that understanding, we can go forward and create and just get really imaginative. Use that mind, use those emotions, use that energy, so that it can become something that you can use.
And so, we've heard of the God gene, right? As they're trying to slow down my line of thought here. So the VMAT2 genes, the God gene plays a role in our openness to spiritual experiences. Now, we understand the pineal gland, and the pineal gland has been purposely shut down, its function shut down. And they've also just terrified us with the fundamentalist point of view of, you shouldn't be talking to any spirits. Don't talk to dead people. No imaginary friends for you. This is all so they could control the narrative. Because if you did have an active pineal gland and you're talking to somebody that we might say is a ghost per se, and they might tell you and describe to you what they're experiencing, you might realize that what they tell you that happens after we die is not what happens. Typically, it's not what happens at all. So it might basically destroy a lot of religious belief sets. If you could communicate to other beings that, again, going back to Shakespeare, there are more things in heaven and earth that you can't see, but they are there. This is why the prohibition is there on things that they would call witchcraft. This is why they burned the witches. And so with the new humanity that they want to create, this is going to be turned off. And again, no functioning pineal gland and no inclination towards spiritual experiences. They just need worker bees. Worker bees they control. We talked about how ultimately they would turn humanity into another sort of gray ET. That is so, so true. This is a beautiful car, is it not? Well, this could be representative of humanity and the type of vehicle we drive in a golden age, where now they want you all to be driving Pintos or Yugos.
Yeah, something that they can control. Maybe something with AI in it so they can control that too.
And, hey, we have to blow all the paradigms. And we were talking about infiltration. And there are so many out there that are infiltrating us at all levels, giving us many truths, giving us many, deep spiritual insights, only to just distort and waylay and take us down another one of their dead ends. So here's just some guys over at the Few joking about,
So in the session we just attended here at the Economic Forum, I think there was a sense of relief, actually, in your frankness. You brought up some issues that others are reluctant to bring up.
Always. All the religious groups are against me because I'm talking about population. They want more souls. I want less on the planet.
That says it all right there. Now, I'll give you guys all the links. Sadhguru, for instance, is another way that we have been infiltrated, and it doesn't mean that you can't find wisdom in some of the things that he says. You can. But again, there he is bending the knee. Look at the pyramid. Mm-hmm. Look at the eye. It's right in front of you. And this too, crescent moon. The WEF. We've seen 45 bend the knee and say these are some of the most important people in the world. This is time for us to recognize every single avenue. Just when we're making our way through this labyrinth of lies and you think you found the way and you get caught in another tangled, twisted web of deception.
Mm-hmm. you know, and it's really sad because you have to look at things and look how popular they are and understand the controllers are allowing that popularity to reach its peaks for a reason. And that's why our discernment is so critical right now. It's so, so, so critical. And, you know, look at that popularity of people and sit and just think, meditate with that.
Absolutely. As always, guys, much love. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.